As we know, the telecoms industry has been making efforts to transform itself and adopt more agile and efficient ways of operating. To talk more about how cloud native can support this goal, I'm delighted to be joined by Carlos Bravo, Director of Cloud Strategy Execution, Group Function Technology at Ericsson. So, Carlos, in your view, what are the key benefits cloud native brings to operators and the wider industry?
Well, if we put it in a nutshell, cloud native is actually the way the telecom industry is going to be able to deliver new capabilities and new functionality faster and at more efficient cost. If we go through the benefits, I think that there are three mains. We talk about the speed of change, and here we talk about implementing continuous delivery of smaller pieces of software or smaller changes in the network that will be applied faster and obviously with a lower risk. We talk about openness, and I think this is important both from an open source but also from open interfaces. Getting access to a wide and rich community like an ecosystem like Cloud Native Computing Foundation, where you have access to technology, processes and tools, that is going to be another important benefit. And the third one that I think is important is to be able to leverage the modern cloud technologies. Here, more into the processes part of it, right? We talk about automation and being able to implement automation. We talk about being able to decouple the life cycle of the applications and the infrastructure, and that will provide efficiencies. But we talk as well about access to resources and being able to scale the applications according to the resources need. And here we talk about obviously not only efficiencies but also resilience and flexibility. So in summary, it is a speed of change, it is openness, and it is the be able to leverage the modern cloud technologies that will allow the telecom industry to deliver those new capabilities faster and at a lower cost.
We have talked about cloud-native transformation for a long time. What is your view of the pace of adoption and transformation in our industry?
Well, here we can say that the pace varies significantly between the communication service provider community. We have some pioneer operators that are really determined to implement cloud native and to get the benefits of this cloud native transformation, while the majority of the operators community is still on the analyzing phase. And I would say that from that pace of adoption, the technology is well progressed. I mean, containers, microservices, decoupling of application and infrastructure, that is something that is already in there. They are deploying cloud native applications. Where we see that there is still on the early days is the way of working, is the management and automation and the processes, right? And I have to say that this was also very important and valid for the NFV transformation, right? And there we saw that ways of working was as important as technology, but it was not given the same priority. And at the end of the day, I would say that that was one of the reasons why the benefits were not there as expected. And I would say that another important aspect that we have to say as well is that the operators, the majority of them, they have already a significant competence in their IT departments, in their IT side, right? The IT industry has gone through this cloud native transformation already. They are on their way. And it is also very important to look into that competence, into the learnings that they have, because those are going to be critical resources to accelerate this adoption of cloud native.
You're making very good points there, Carlos. And what do you see as the biggest hurdles for cloud native transformation?
If we looked into the cloud native transformation, we need to look into four aspects that goes into the technology, but also into the way of working. And those four aspects are the application design and development, where we looked into microservices, where we looked into state optimize, where we looked into how to automate the application itself. We looked into the technology and infrastructure. That is another aspect that is important. And here we looked into container as a service. We looked into IT tools. And I think it's important to notice as well that here the IT industry and hyperscale cloud providers are important players. But we looked as well into the management and orchestration, how to automate the tools, how to implement a DevOps environment, and how to be able to decoupling the infrastructure and the applications, being able to automate the different pieces independently. This is an important aspect. And as I said, the processes and the way of working. Here, we looked into into DevOps, into data flows, into different steps in the processes, but also something that is going to be very important. That is how to operate and manage those different pieces when we have different providers on the different areas. So, as I said, all of them are really important. And while the technology aspects are well understood, and I think I mentioned already before, right? And we looked into any requirement from an operator, and we see that they have tons of requirements when it comes to the application design, to the technology, infrastructure, etc. But when we looked into the same requirements, we see that actually the automation part or the processes and way of working, those are not really updated to the latest requirement on the from a cloud native transformation, and that is an important thing. I think another important aspect is when we looked into the cloud native transformation, we need to look into different providers and responsibility splits and how to do the contribution of the different players into the whole process. And that is another area where we think that there is little work so far, and we need to do further work. And I would say that another important aspect or another limitation that we see right now is that these processes, these tools, that will require an industry alignment. And industry alignment in terms of packaging, in terms of flows and steps that has to be adopted, in terms of interfaces and integration points and handover points between the different players in the whole flow. And that requires an industry alignment. We are actually working with some of those pioneer operators to look into what are the different pieces that will really require an alignment across the industry, and then to look into which are the forums where we think those alignments has to be achieved. So those are, in our opinions, the biggest limitations or the biggest challenges that we see right now. I mean, not the technology as such, because we are a technology industry, but it's the transformation that is needed on the processes and the way of working that is actually a limiting factor right now, and something that we need to really put, or we are actually putting in significant focus.
Finally, what are the views and the learnings on how the cloud-native transformation should be approached, considering the huge legacy that the vast majority of telcos have?
We are actually working with those pioneer CSPs in order to see how to implement the cloud native and how to bring the processes and the way of working, as I said. They are already deploying cloud native applications. So as we mentioned before, technology is not a challenge, but we are working with them in looking into how to deploy or implement the cloud native transformation in a control environment, being able to get the learnings, get the competence ramp up, being able to adapt the processes to the different operator requirements, etc. So, and just to give a few examples, right? We have some operators, leading operators in Europe that are having a small team that is looking into cloud native and cloud native implementation, where we are working with them as software providers, looking into software lifecycle management, software pipelines, how to make sure that the handover points are actually working in a multi-vendor environment. That is what we're going to see in the majority of the operators. So that is really an important aspect. We see some other operators we are working with, for example, in North America, that are really reworking the whole software lifecycle management and tools, and we are working together with them in order to make sure that that is a valid or a reasonable implementation at a reasonable cost and really efficient, right? And that is one of the most important learnings. Another important thing is that the cloud native is not an all or nothing, right? And it is important to understand that as we need to work on the technology aspect and on the processes, it is not that you're going to apply exactly the same things in all the applications. I mean, different applications will change at different paces, will have different requirements. Scalability is not going to be available in all places in the same way. So that is an important aspect as well. We need to make sure that we don't make this an all or nothing play. And I would say that the third learning and the third important aspect is the responsibility and the working with the different players that are going to be part of this cloud native transformation. We need to have different, most probably support agreements. We will need to have responsibility metrics where we have all the different players, because now we have different actors. It's not only an infrastructure and an application. We're going to have an application, an infrastructure, a DevOps environment, a GitOps that is going to be implemented. And it is not only about the tools that we're going to use for implementing GitOps, it's about the flows and making sure that all the different contributors to that flow are actually providing the necessary capabilities. So I would say if we could make some sort of recommendation, or how, based on those learnings, based on the experience that we have with those leading operators, what will be a reasonable way of going through this cloud native transformation is to start in, obviously, on the network side, leveraging the learnings and the competence that the operators have on their IT side, is looking into, for example, 5G standalone, where we're going to have new use cases, new APIs, new functionalities and capabilities that will be required in a really fast pace in order to deliver those capabilities and innovation in the network. Looking into, differentiated connectivity, quality of service or quality on demand, security services, or slicing at the end of the day, right? And start on that environment. That is a control environment. It's a limited environment in terms of scale, and there the processes can be tested, can be the competence and the learnings are going to be in a control environment that is easy to be implemented, and then we can, once the learnings are there, once the competence is built, we can actually scale that into larger part of the system, the networks at the end of the day.
Indeed, there are a lot of takeaways for the industry to learn from as it continues its transformation journey. Carlos, thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you very much for having me here.